Welcome to The Application, the go-to how-to podcast for higher education marketers. I'm your host, Allison Turcio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this podcast is packed with practical tips and actionable advice to help you elevate your marketing game. In each snackable episode, we bring in experts to share their insights and experience on the topics that matter most to you. Got a question or idea you'd like us to cover? Email team@enrollify.org or reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. The application is part of the Enrollify podcast network, and if you like this show, you'll definitely want to check out our other higher ed focused podcasts on admissions, tech, marketing, and more. They're packed with stories, ideas, and tools to help you be the best in your field. All right, it's time for the show. Today's episode is all about arguably the most underrated social media platform in higher ed, LinkedIn. My guest is Kyle Campbell. Kyle is the founder of Education Marketer. Every Tuesday, he publishes a quirky overview of higher ed news, analysis, and demand generation strategies. He has over a decade of higher ed experience and is very active in sharing his insights on LinkedIn. Trust me when I say there's no one better to talk about how higher ed marketers can be leveraging LinkedIn. Welcome, Kyle.
Hello, thank you for having me. Lovely to be back on the podcast.
I'm so glad to have you. And so let's just start with sort of a big question. Can you give us a brief explanation of LinkedIn's importance in higher ed marketing? Like, why should we even be talking about LinkedIn today?
There's a few different reasons for this. I think the first one, I'll approach it from the standard student recruitment angle. I was shocked to learn a few months ago how many students use LinkedIn to reinforce their study choices. So you might be surprised to learn that of the social media networks that PhD students use, 75% of them use LinkedIn to inform their study choices. And I think this is probably around finding the ideal supervisor, because naturally, when you're at that level, you move towards the people who can help you in your pursuit of that knowledge and that support, don't you, rather than just the institution itself. So you need to make sure your supervisor knows their stuff, and it's a one-to-one relationship. So LinkedIn plays a big role in that. Similarly, for the master's level students, this is based on a global survey by an organization called Keystone Education Group. 30,000 students surveyed across the world. In the top three choices of platforms for master's students, LinkedIn features alongside Facebook and Instagram as one of the main channels they use to make study choices. So it's no longer this stuffy network full of just general updates about what we're doing in our careers. It's a place where people go to make decisions. And off the back of that, just yesterday, Google's announced massive changes to the way it highlights search results. It's incorporating AI into those search results. So now you go to search and, rather than clicking through to a university website, you can have all that content consumed in that search engine results page. Well, most universities primarily focus on organic acquisition, don't they, as their means of acquisition. Well, now that might disappear. So where do you go? You have to move to different channels. Search is just a channel, and LinkedIn is one of those new channels. So so that's the two main reasons for me. Big changes to organic acquisition, and also that students are using LinkedIn to make study choices.
This gets in a little bit to the PR, public relations, and media relations side, but I also think there's such an opportunity for stories to be told through LinkedIn and other platforms instead of waiting for the media to pick up on this content and pick up on this story, especially when it comes to professors and sort of the research that they're doing. They are experts, and we don't need to wait until a publication is ready to tell the world about their research, right? Isn't LinkedIn a great opportunity for that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you look at most university structures in communications, there's a real strong emphasis on PR and having strategies to have to pitch journalists or have journalists find you to tell your story for you. But with LinkedIn, if you have a consistent strategy and you understand the pillars and the topics you want to be known for, there are some fantastic universities taking advantage of that sort of way to get their stories out there. LSE, London School of Economics, is one. They have a great way of using content on LinkedIn. They have a research hub on their website, web-based content, long-form content, very rich media. But they always rethink about how they can repurpose those research stories, those research news pieces for a LinkedIn audience. So you might have a really long-form piece on the website, but you go on LinkedIn and you have this really short, snappy video edited for that audience. You've got a nice bit of context around it in the text post. And these things just fly. They do so well. We're looking at 30,000 views, 2,000 reactions, tons of comments. And this is LinkedIn. It's not Facebook. And I don't think people realize that potential. On this year alone, I think compared to last year, there's 22% more in-feed updates on LinkedIn, so native publishing happening there. And also 75% more spontaneous live events happening in LinkedIn. So this place is bustling. And I think the image it has is very different to the reality in some cases.
Well, I hope by now everyone listening is starting to see the potential that we have here. So now that we understand that better, how can we as higher ed marketers leverage LinkedIn? What should we be doing?
Yeah, I mean, the default view people take with this stuff is when we say, how does a marketer take advantage? I think our default understanding is that we jump to the brand page, right?
Yes.
And I don't think that's the greatest opportunity. I think it is an opportunity, and there are some good brand pages, but it'd be no surprise to people that branded content, brand pages don't get as much reach as individuals on LinkedIn, individual profiles. So the real opportunity for education marketers, if they think about their teams and how they want to raise a profile of their content through LinkedIn, is to understand the power of staff advocacy. And in the UK, I'll give you an example of this. There's a great institution. I think I would call it a challenger institution. It's a fairly new university called UA92, and their director of recruitment and admissions is also a LinkedIn influencer. And I know that sounds like such a strange mix, but actually the way she uses this platform, it's just wonderful to watch. And it's how we should be thinking about our roles as marketers and recruiters in 2023. So she posts every day, like me. She's got way more followers than me. And she talks about things like challenges for young people in education. She's publishing content that is of interest to potential parents, potential partners. She's also publishing content for young people or young professionals who are early in their career. She's basically personifying what this university wants to be known for, and she's doing it consistently, and she's doing it in an accessible way. And it's just great to see, because LinkedIn then gives that stuff scale. So before, we might have a member of the recruitment team go into a school and do a presentation, or we might do a little bit of printed literature or something like that. But now we have a real influencer on a platform living these things every day. She's making new partnerships from the university. Parents are seeing this. You can't even begin to calculate the impact this personal profile is having. So my understanding, if you're in a social team or anything, kind of a digital communications team in the uni, you need to be finding people like that in your organization. And if they need support, or if they need any more support, not that this person does, you want to be looking how you can replicate that at different parts. So that's a recruitment example. You could easily do the same with a outspoken member of faculty who wants to raise their profile in a certain area. You could do it for any part of the university. We've done this with student ambassadors, haven't we?
Yes.
We're used to publishing on other people's channels. The big opportunity is taking that and applying it to staff and their reach.
Well, what strikes me about the difference here versus what we've done in the past about, putting stuff out over student channels is that what you're talking about in these examples is it's not about the person and it's not promotional in nature, the content. That's what sets this apart. Is that true?
Yeah. Absolutely. We spend a lot of time in marketing talking about personal brands, i.e. the me. Actually, it's not about brand, it's about category and what you represent. People say I'm really good at personal branding, and I don't think I am. That's never my intention. I publish for an audience. I never publish about what I'm doing in my day, and I don't do any relatable posts. I just don't. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't mean that doesn't mean to say it wouldn't work for others, but there's real power in LinkedIn in being known for something. And I could start a publishing strategy tomorrow that would probably double the amount of traction my stuff gets by being more personal, posting slightly different content about stuff that's slightly more relatable, around its leadership or whatever it is, things that people can immediately jump into. But my posts are sometimes quite, would I say difficult? I don't know. You have to kind of read through the data, and I wouldn't say they're an easy read. But that's okay. And I think that could be the same for any area of a university that wants to be known for a topic. If you want to be known for something and be an expert in that area, you need to go into the reads, into the deep insight. And your audience might grow slower, but those who do attract, they're the right audience, and they're a much more engaged audience. So when you see a creator on LinkedIn with like 50,000 followers, they've even been doing it for a while, or you might notice that their content is quite undifferentiated versus a micro creator of around 3,000 followers. They tend to be a bit more focused on what they're doing. And yeah, their audience turns up to support them when they need that.
Time for a pop quiz. What keywords does your website rank for? What doesn't it rank for that you think it should? What are a few opportunities you could be winning on if you just tweak some website copy on your .edu? Okay, how'd you do? Not great? That's okay, because our friends at DD Agency want to answer all of those questions for you and then some. DD Agency is a higher ed specific marketing technology agency that has conducted countless SEO audits for colleges and universities across the country. In these audits, they detail where you currently rank, what you could be ranking for, exactly how copy should be tweaked on web pages, and much more. If this sounds like something you could benefit from, give those folks a ping and be sure to mention that Enrollify sent you to claim a 10% discount on any of their SEO offerings. Head on over to enrollify.org/DDASEO or simply follow the link in the show notes below. That will guarantee you get a 10% discount off of your audit. Head on over to enrollify.org/DDASEO to learn more. So if the role of marketers is really to help find those creators and support those creators, in your example, she had built that platform herself, right? And so this university is benefiting. How can we help people to start? How can we encourage or inspire them that this is a great avenue for promoting themselves, promoting their work, but not even really promoting, but just providing value. And in doing that, that increases your personal brand and the organizational's brand. And by the way, Kyle, that's what I think people think when they're talking about what you're doing. Because you're providing value to the rest of us. We find the content. So we're associating you with these topics. And so it has increased your personal brand, even though I can promise you don't talk about yourself. It's not about you, but you have raised your personal profile by doing this work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think if you ever put yourself first before an audience, the audience quickly disappear, or you don't get one. But in terms of first steps you can help people take, I mean, it's sometimes, in maybe a good way to look at this. So if in organizations, especially in higher ed, usually the chance to have a promotion is often resorted down to the idea you have to manage more people, right? You have to take on more responsibility in terms of people management and grow your remit that way. Now, in higher ed, this doesn't really work particularly well.
No, it doesn't. I think everyone listening will agree to that.
Exactly. And I think, the other solution is to understand the role of the specialists. And to help a specialist grow, you can help them talk more about their specialism and help other people understand that and raise their profile that way. So maybe a different way to help people think about career growth is to offer them the chance of the support of the institution to build their career that way. So maybe if you do have a specialist in your marketing team who's particularly passionate about peer-to-peer student recruitment or ways you can use TikTok in interesting and engaging ways, then maybe there's an avenue there rather than put them on a training course. It's maybe giving them the space and the freedom to create content around the practice of what they're doing and growing their career that way. That's one way of doing it. The other way is to work backwards and go, right, the university wants to be known for this. And then looking at the people who are already kind of active on the platform, and then with the social media team's expertise and what content works in these networks, maybe book or try and get some time with them for 30 minutes and just talking about the potential that they could unlock if they did content in a slightly different way. But again, it can't be forced. And what I'm not talking about here is, the ones I'm talking about, usually in SaaS environments, less in higher education, but there's like staff evangelism programs or systems you log into to get benefits for reposting company posts and things like that, and that doesn't work.
That's not, that's not what we're talking about.
No. It needs to be more of helping the individual, but at the same time, expressing the values what the university wants to be known for. And if people see it's for development, they're usually quite open to it. But as long as you're not putting words in their mouth, that's where it gets a little bit sticky.
You've given us a couple examples early on. Are there any other real life examples that we should follow and look to get inspired about this work?
I think so. I mean, LinkedIn is very much about building audience, and I think that's where the longest sort of benefits come from, the longer term benefits come from. But there's also great examples of universities just using the platform quite well in an ad hoc way. The one that springs to mind, and there's probably a few other examples like this, but Aston University in the UK seems to understand the value of having honorary grads with a great remit and reach on themselves. So actually giving, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in the UK we have honorary degrees, so we give a degree to someone based on their contribution to society and business.
Yes, we have those too.
Good. They are very good, and it's great to see honorary degrees being given to people who have these large networks on platforms like LinkedIn, because they then talk about it and they then manage to get the university's name out there in a way that wasn't possible for the university before. The example I've seen recently is the CEO of Gymshark being given an honorary degree from Aston because he actually studied there for a period of time. And he receives this. There's a whole video put together on LinkedIn by his team to make more of a thing out of it. The university's all over this. There's a ceremony, and it just makes the university look more forward-thinking as a result. So yeah, that's an ad hoc example. That's not a regular tactic you can deploy. But yeah, I think that really stands out for me as something that is a good way to use that platform.
I think it connects to other types of things, though, too. Perhaps it's something you start looking at in the criteria for alumni awards or student awards that are given. So honorary degrees are great. Those are people who have built audiences and they could start talking about your college. But you might have people in your college community or university community who also have built these audiences, maybe not tens of thousands, but they have an audience. And it might be something to look at about who are you writing stories about? Who are you giving awards to? Who are you holding up on your campus? Because then they're likely to talk about that through their channels.
Yes. My university, Falmouth University, I've been out of it many years now, but they have a fantastic alumni team who are using LinkedIn to reach out to people like myself. They discovered me via the content I was publishing. I mean, my audience is classed as a micro audience. It's around 2,500. But they're reaching out for me to opportunities. They invited me back to talk to students about my experience of creating a content business and all of these things. And, for me, this is almost where an alumni team needs to be today. And LinkedIn feels like that channel for you to really build those long-term bonds. And typically, the alumni communications that alumni receive aren't normally up to scratch. It's the alumni newsletter. It's a little bit generic, but those chances to have those one-to-one communications and conversations in LinkedIn with your alumni and your alumni team, very powerful. And I speak very highly of my university because of it. And if they didn't do it, I wouldn't probably be speaking about them, would I? So they do good stuff.
So as we try to embark on this journey of leveraging LinkedIn, what are some common challenges that we should just be aware of as we're trying to use LinkedIn for more powerful things, honestly?
Yeah, the number one thing for me, and I think for most creators, is consistency, and this sort of leads into another thing as well. When we say consistency, people automatically assume that's just about posting at the same time
Yeah.
every day.
And every
It's
day.
not, and every day, yeah, and
Yeah.
and you do it over weekends and all that. That is part of it, but another big part of it is keeping up the quality,
Quality.
because LinkedIn is its algorithm is it's just like any other social network. But the thing is, if you have a bad day and you don't get a great post, it's not necessarily an issue. But if you consistently post poor quality content, you're basically telling the algorithm that you're not worth sending views to or traffic to. So you kind of need to have an idea of what you want to be known for. Spend time creating your content, getting it right. Don't necessarily just post something because you're coming down to the last minute. Saying that, there is an element about you've got to do a bit of quantity to find out, where the quality is. You've got to work out what works. But ultimately, the consistency is the thing that people fall down on, because I joked at the beginning of the year on LinkedIn, right? Whose New Year's resolution is to post every day, and if you check back in people a month later, they've usually tailed off. But yeah, the number one reason these things fail, any kind of content program, is because people give up. They give up too early. And the thing is, with LinkedIn, it's almost like people expect great results after a few weeks. And if you look at my own statistics for my content, any people like me who publish on these platforms, you don't normally start to see the big returns until you're probably, I don't know, probably a year to 18 months into that
Wow.
process. I mean, I've been publishing on LinkedIn a year, and it was only probably post Christmas that I saw that curve really starting to gain momentum. Before that, it had been growing, but something's clicked, and now the compounding benefits are there, to keep that momentum growing. So I'm going to keep pushing that as much as I can, because it does take a while to get that engine started.
Yeah, and marketers, we know we're not always the most patient people. So that's a hard one to swallow, to stick with it. But you've found a way to find that consistency. Not just about that you're posting often, but you are so consistent within the category of
Yeah.
what you're talking about. And do you have any tips or tricks that you could share with the rest of us that have helped you be able to do that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to have a point of view. Most people will have some sort of philosophy in how they approach marketing as a practice. You might not necessarily have that when you start your publishing journey, but it will definitely come to you over time. So you'll have a body of text or a body of work or a body of knowledge that you can share a perspective into fairly frequently. That's your bigger performing post, because it's an area that you really know a lot about. When you have gaps in that, something I found really useful was just to take that perspective and see how it applies to other news items. So I'm an education marketer, but that doesn't mean I'm not interested in general digital media and content trends. It doesn't mean I'm not interested in like general stuff around paid advertising, but I'm always taking those recent pieces of news, data analysis from other reports, and I'm presenting it through the lens of education marketing. And if you've got that sort of content going as a real sort of baseline, then every once in a while you can actually put out like a super deep and long and thoughtful post about a topic that tends to do better. But yeah, if you're struggling for like something's happening in the day, the internet's this amazing thing. There's always something going on, right? So you just look for a piece of news that's relating to your sector and then present it to people in a meaningful and accessible way, and you'll present something of value every day as a result.
That's great advice. And before we wrap up, I have one more question. What is the first step our listeners should take after they finish this podcast? Whether they want to start doing what you're doing for themselves or they want to help creators at their institutions leverage LinkedIn, what is that first step?
Okay, well, I'll give you both those versions then. So if you're doing this yourself, the first thing you can do is practice in public. The trouble we have as writers and any platform or any creators on any platform is we often obsess over getting things absolutely perfect before we hit publish. And if you do that, you're never going to get the volume. You're never going to get the thing off the ground. You need to publish in quantity to work out what doesn't work. And then over that process, you'll learn and basically just treat it like a big open classroom. People will tell you if something sucks and people will tell you if something's good. You've got to be willing to put yourself at risk. And I know it's difficult. I know it's not easy, but you'll learn quicker by doing things that way. If you're doing this in your organization and you want to build up thought leaders or individuals in universities, the first thing I do is look who's already doing it. And sometimes you can get a quick win just by partnering with them in a more official capacity with a marketing team. And then there's a second tier below that of people who are showing promise, and maybe your team, your social media team or your marketing team could provide communication support to write better content or help them deliver more content at scale. So that's my two pieces there.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast, Kyle. This was a really cool conversation. You made me think about things I hadn't thought about with LinkedIn before.
It's a powerful platform, and thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you found the information valuable, please subscribe to the podcast and share this episode with a friend or colleague who might also find it useful.
Hey y'all, Zach here from Enrollify. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. Our shows feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Mickey Baines, Jeremy Tiers, Jamie Hunt, Jamie Gleason, and many, many more. You can learn more about the Enrollify Podcast Network at podcasts.enrollify.org. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea. Find yours at podcasts.enrollify.org.